All right, welcome guys back to another episode of Strictly Sports Podcast Live. We have some good games to review for you guys. Maybe not the best games. I think we all kind of had a general consensus that we felt like last week's games in the wild card weekend were a little bit better. But we will talk about them. And the first one we're going to start out with is the Chiefs Browns game that ended up actually being a lot closer of a game than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. Even before Mahomes got hurt, I think the Browns were kind of keeping it closer than people thought. I know it was like 19-3 at half, I think. But even so, it was still a two-possession game, even though it didn't really look like that. So let's jump right into that one first, and we're going to start with Trav on that game.
Yeah, you mentioned it seemed close, a two-possession game, but it was interesting because it seemed a little bit close because you're thinking, okay, it's 19-3 at half, but if the dude doesn't fumble the ball out of the end zone, it's basically probably going to be 16-10 because they're going to run a little more time. They probably don't have time to. The Chiefs probably wouldn't have had time to get that last field goal drive in. So you're probably looking at a 16-10 game had the fumble out of the end zone not happened. But really, if you watch the game, the Chiefs dominated the half. But what do I always talk about when you're playing the Chiefs? What do you have to do? Limit the possessions. The Browns, in a weird way, kind of limited the possessions, not really by taking long scoring drives, but the drives they did have, even though they didn't score points with them, they were able to stay on the field long enough. And then their defense played kind of a sit back and make Kansas City throw everything in front of them. And Kansas City stayed patient, and they took really longer than normal scoring drives than they did themselves. So you look up at the end of the day, and there were basically three possessions for each team in the half. Maybe I call it a half a possession on that last possession for the Chiefs. They were able to go down and get a field goal and ran out of time on really having a chance to score a touchdown. But you look at it 19-3, like, oh, it's not that bad. But really, I was just watching it about 10 minutes ago, watching the replay. They showed the total yards right at the end of the third drive for the Chiefs. The total yards was 230-70. So they absolutely were dominating before that last drive for the Browns, which they had a great drive, but then they fumbled out of the end zone, so they really don't get rewarded for it. So Chiefs had their way with them. It didn't look that bad, but the Chiefs really had their way with them in that first half. It just didn't look as bad, I think. And then you're also thinking, well, they should have had the touchdown. So if they just did what they're supposed to, this is a game. But really, the Chiefs had their way with them in that first half. The second half, even before the Mahomes injury, it started to turn. Browns were able to get a couple stops there. They turned the ball over, but then they actually get a stop, missed field goal. Harrison Butker is not helping anybody with his missed extra points and missing the occasional field goal. He's got to clean that up. But then the Mahomes injury happens. I guess my point of all this is, if the Chiefs nearly lost it, and I think the rhetoric would have been, oh, well, they never would have lost if Mahomes didn't get hurt. But in a weird way, because of the limited possessions of the game, the Browns already kept that game pretty close. Henne was only in, I think, for basically the back end of one drive and two other drives. And he moved the ball on both of them. So I don't think the game changed that much with Mahomes being out as much as people would have thought. Yeah, they probably close it out like that. The drive where Henne leads him down past half field and he throws a terrible interception. If that's Mahomes, does he lead him down there and probably either at least get a field goal or score a touchdown, which probably puts the game out of reach? A field goal puts it at 8 to where they're at least overtime at worst. Yeah, maybe. But all in all, it didn't play out that much differently. And I just think one thing I think is interesting to note. Once Mahomes' foot injury, to me, before the head injury, the foot injury to me slowed him down. Yeah. That's when I felt like the game started to initially turn. Before the injury to the concussion he got, he had that foot injury, and I felt like the 2 or 3 drives after that, they weren't bad drives, but it didn't feel like he could do everything he wanted to do. And that started to go from like Chiefs are pretty much in full control to like, oh, the Browns are starting to turn it here and keep it close enough. And then, oh, well, now Chad Henne's in the game. It's full 50-50. So interesting how it kind of played out, but I think the better team won.
Yeah, I do too. I think like you touched on, the Browns really just trying to limit possession. I think that was their game plan, and I think that's the game plan to try to beat the Chiefs is keep them off the field as much as you can. If you give Pat Mahomes, so many possessions, he's going to burn you. They're going to score points.
But also, with limiting possessions, isn't just about you having a long drive. If you make them take 6 minutes to score,
right? Yeah, like you said.
In some ways, and then if you can even hold them to a field goal, that's kind of a win.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, right. Keeping it in front of them. Don't give them the big explosive plays that come down the field and score in 3 minutes to give them more possessions. You got to make them take 6-minute drives. So they did that. And then, the big thing obviously is the Mahomes going out with the injury. And yeah, Henne, I mean, when he threw that pick, everybody's kind of thinking, oh man, this is going to be going to be the unraveling of the Chiefs, and they're going to crumble because of this. And then, but to his credit, man, when he needed it at the end of the game, he stepped up and he made a veteran clutch play for that run. And then everybody's going to question. And I Travis said Andy Reid's an idiot. Like when he let Henny throw that ball. And yeah, I don't think, and that's the thing, like everybody talking about Romo's reaction because of how crazy it was to think that you're going to let Chad Henne put the ball in his hands in the fourth down to clinch the game, and you're going to let him throw that pass. But hey, they did it and it worked. I mean, if it hadn't won, then yeah, he would be getting roasted big time. But I mean, they found a way to do it. And, hats off to Chad Henne for stepping up in the big moment of the game and getting it done.
I think I'm going to have to – I think my takeaway from it is just the Browns had a opportunity, in my opinion, to go further than they would have deserved to have gone and actually, like, really make some great strides into kind of the Baker Mayfield legacy and Kevin Stefanski legacy. And what I was just so disappointed that the Browns couldn't step up to the occasion defensively with Chad Henne in there. And, it didn't look that different from when Mahomes was in there, with the exception of the interception. But that's the way Andy Reid has always been.
Yeah.
When he was in Philadelphia and McNabb went down, he won games with Coy Detmer and A.J. Feely, guys that were these perennial journeymen. Andy Reid doesn't stop calling the game that he wants to call just because there's a different quarterback in there. But for me, the takeaway is the Browns missed a big opportunity. Like, they weren't going to win that game with Mahomes in there. I think we all can agree to that. But that was their chance. If they were going to advance and move on, that was their chance when he went out. And the third
and 14 was the one. You can't give up 13 and a half yards.
Exactly.
On third and 14. If you just get off the field there, they're not going to go for it. So they at least had a chance. I don't think they would have scored. They had no timeouts. They would have had about a minute and 10 seconds to go, probably 80-plus yards. And I don't think they're going to score. But at least they would have given themselves a chance, and that's just a bad defensive effort there on 3rd and 14 to give that up. Yeah. I think the question now is, though, all right, is Mahomes going to play? No one can answer that right now. But let's say he does play, but he's probably not going to practice all week. He's probably not going to be cleared to practice it yet, you know what I mean? So let's say he plays next week on no practice or very limited practice against the Bills and Josh Allen, who are a really good team in their own right. Maybe not playing as good as they were kind of at the end of the year. I feel like the Bills aren't quite doing that. We'll talk a little bit more about them later. Right. But do we think Mahomes can do it on no practice time going up against this good of an opponent? Do you still think the Chiefs are in a good spot?
I'm actually wondering if the foot injury will be the bigger problem in that game than the head injury.
That's a great point.
Yeah, because I think I was listening to somebody on ESPN talk about what you have to do to get through the concussion protocol, and he basically said, if you want to, you can make your way back from a concussion in the NFL. Like, you can do that even if you're still having symptoms. So I don't think that'll be the thing that – I think he'll come back from that. He'll be cleared. It'll be the foot injury, in my opinion.
I think that's a great point. Yeah. I agree with you, because that's what's really going to – well, the concussion won't limit him in any way. As long as he's fully recovered and the cobwebs are all gone or whatever, that won't limit him. I want to know how bad, because no one's talking about that. That probably would have been a bigger story if he didn't get a concussion. Like, oh, how's his foot coming out of this? They probably went a little easier, and everyone's talking about, is that just a little nick that's gone now, or is that something that's going to linger? Because like I said, that really, I thought he looked different in those 2 or 3 drives that he played before the concussion and after the injury. So that's a good point. I didn't even think about it from that angle. If he's limited there, plus no practice time, it could really affect him. If he doesn't play, that's
his mobility is less. Right. If his mobility is gone, he's going to be lend himself to needing to get the ball out sooner.
That puts a lot of pressure.
That's not the Chiefs' offense at all, and so that could be a problem.
I mean, they could still. I agree. They could still move the ball, but they're a shell of their offense if he's not able to be everything he is usually. And then I guess what I would say is, if he doesn't play, do you guys give the Chiefs any chance?
No.
If he doesn't play,
I would still give them a chance. I still give them a chance. I would probably pick Buffalo, but I still think they have a chance. Only because, like we just talked about, and we'll talk about in a little bit, I don't think Buffalo's looking as good as they were. Yeah. So
I agree with you, because Buffalo has not wowed me in their 2 wins in the playoffs, and it's going to be in Kansas City with some fans. I would give them a real chance to win with Chad Henne, and because their defense has improved. I thought their defense did their job against Cleveland. They held them to 17 points. Yeah, they let him on the field too long. But at the end of the day, they got the stops they needed to stops. When Chad Henne was in and you knew they needed to stop, they got the stops. So given all that, I think it would still be a very close game. Yeah, I'd pick the Bills, but I wouldn't shock me at all if they went in there, because Chad Henne, I think, like I said, I think he's capable.
I think with a week of practice for Henne, and being able to prep for a game, he would definitely look better. So I don't think it would be some blowout game where it's 35-3. But I do think that the Bills would probably, have a greater chance, like 60-40 to win that.
I think we can all agree. Let's just hope and pray that Mahomes plays. Because Mahomes versus Josh Allen in an AFC championship.
You want to see the premier match.
That has some great potential if they're both full go.
Playoffs, you just want to see the best first play.
Yeah, I mean, so going into the next game, obviously the Bills and the Ravens. That game to me ended up kind of being one of the more dud games of all of them, and then Lamar got hurt. So we're gonna kick it over to Danny. What was your synopsis of it, Dan? I know you kind of told us already that you kind of agreed that it was kind of a dud of a game.
Yeah, it was like the game I was looking forward to the most this whole weekend. In all honesty, that and the Saints-Bucks game were like the two games that I was looking forward to. But Lamar Jackson played not that great. I think that the game plan the Bills had for limiting him to being able to run and stuff of that nature, was really good. I give a lot of credit to Leslie Frazier for how they game planned for him. I think the thing that I want to kind of touch base on is the Ravens all year have been a team that has physically been able to impose their will on the line, defense, offensive line, defensive line. In this game, and this is to the credit of Buffalo, who has been known to give up a lot of rushing yards, held J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Lamar Jackson to barely anything in that game. They really stepped up, and then even on the offensive line side of the ball, I felt like Josh Allen was relatively untouched the entire game. So I just think they won where it mattered most. They were the more physical team. I would love to hear what your guys' opinion is on the fact that I see a lot of Ravens players coming out and saying that they're actually rooting for the Bills to win it all now, and kind of having to take that they root for the team that they lose to win it all.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is to me. But watching that, like you said, Dan, they didn't sack Josh Allen. I think they really didn't blitz. I think they saw the numbers of Josh Allen versus blitz, and I think they figured, well, we'll take our chances not blitzing. And let's face it, whatever the defensive game plan for the Ravens was, it worked. They played great on defense. It was a wasted effort, unfortunately, for them on defense, because they did exactly what they needed to do. They got off the field when they needed to. They held them 17 points. Yeah, there was a couple missed field goals in there, so it should have been a little more. But all in all, you take that performance 10 out of 10 times when you're going up against the Bills and you do what the Ravens did on defense. But it was wasted because the Ravens offense couldn't get it. They're going to let him run some. They're not going to let Lamar run. They're going to maybe give more leeway to let the backs run, but they'll bow up when they get inside the 20. Well, after that first drive, they didn't run it at all. Not only did the Bills not only didn't break, but they didn't bend, and they just got stops one after another. Yeah, they made some plays. Justin Tucker missed a couple field goals himself, so they should have had a few more points, but maybe instead of 6, it should have been 12. But the game-changing play, it came down to this. Even as good as the Bills defense played, it was a close game. Late third quarter, and you got the Ravens going down there to possibly tie the game. And once again, they can't get it in the end zone. And not only do they not get it in the end zone, he throws basically a game-losing pick, and they run it all the way back, and then it's pretty much ball game. Any chance they had was ended on the next play when the snap over the head happens, and he gets a concussion and he's out of the game. So then it was definitely over. But it really was over after the interception. You can't make that throw. And I just think it goes back to Lamar's deficiencies. Everyone can you hear the pundits out there, at least I have been hearing about how they need to get the Ravens more receivers and they need to develop him as a passer. Look, the Ravens' issues right now, whoever you want to blame, is they are deficient in one area, and that is their passing game. They are a great running team. They can be a 12-win team year after year. The question is, can they win a Super Bowl being this limited on offense, having basically one dimension of an offense? People talk about it with teams all the time. Talk about the Steelers, right? Well, they can't run the ball. They can only throw, and everyone wants to talk about how they couldn't go anywhere. But no one wants to seem to recognize that it's the same thing, just on the other end for a different team. Mm-hmm. So until that gets fixed, then you can blame whoever you want. I think, to me, it's on Lamar. He's just got to become a better passer, or I don't see them winning big. Yeah, they'll still be a winning team, and he's great at what he does, and they're still a really good offense. But you're not gonna be nearly as good as you are in the regular season when you get up against real opponents who can. It's just easier to game plan I'd rather have a guy who can throw or a team that can throw and can't run than a team who can. This day and age in NFL football, even if he is a dynamic quarterback runner and you have dynamic running backs, you need that element of the game to win big. And until they do that, it's going to probably be the same story for them.
I see Lamar as like a one-read quarterback most of the time. He's a one-read quarterback, and if he has to get off of that first read, he's running with the football because you don't see him dump the ball down to running backs, and that's because the running back's like the last read. When everybody else is covered, you dump it off to the running back.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't get through the progressions.
No, a lot of times, even when he throws it to like Patrick DeMarco, that like 300-pound fullback, it's his first read. It's the first guy that catches his eye.
They call plays for that. Yeah.
Right. So like that's the problem because you can say that he needs wide receivers. I think they have plenty of talent on offense. It's just a matter of him progressing as a passing quarterback in order to be able to utilize everybody they have.
Well, I do agree they need a receiver. They need a true number one. Hollywood Brown's not a number one. Hollywood Brown's probably just an overrated guy in general, and they don't really have a great receiving core. So if they get a better receiving core, yeah, it might get a little bit better, but a receiver is only as good as a quarterback throwing him that throws to him. Okay, having a running quarterback does nothing for a receiver. You need a guy who can throw it to them. So you can get Kenny Golladay, you can get Allen Robinson, the talk I'm hearing about, they need to get one of those two guys. But what's going to happen when he can't get them the ball consistently? They're not going to look like a number one. So the issue is he needs to be better. Now, if you want to blame the coaching staff, to me, Greg Roman's a great offensive coordinator. You can't put this on him.
If they fire him, man, that's stupid.
Because, I know Aggie keeps saying he hears people, he's heard a couple people say, well, they need to develop him, give him a chance to throw. Why would you throw? All you hear from guys, and it's true, don't throw 35 times with Lamar or 30 times. That's not his game. Exactly. And I'm not saying he doesn't have to throw 30 times. You got to be more effective with your 20 throws. If you're going to say we're a 20 throw team and a 35 to 40 run team, that's fine. You can win like that. But it needs to be 16 for 20 for 200 yards, not 11 for 21 with 150. You know what I mean? That's not going to get it done.
Well, and then also, like we've talked about, when you're only throwing it 18, 20 times a game, when you suddenly find yourself down by 2 touchdowns, you can't just run because you don't have enough time, and you got to move the ball down the field. And when it's late in the game and you're down by that, and if you're only used to throwing it 18 times, it's on Lamar to get better, but as a coach or as a team, I wouldn't expect my quarterback who only throws it 20 times a game to be out there gunslinging on play after play after play and be able to be that successful, So at some point you have to do something with your offense to get him better or more comfortable throwing the ball more often, or at least when he's needed. And when they are down, they have to throw more. He's better at doing it when he has to do it.
Yeah, listen, you can win a lot of games, and the Ravens have in the last 2.5 years since Lamar took over. They've won a lot of games. He's won an MVP. They've had the number one offense one year. But at the end of the day, can you win big? Can you make these deep runs in the playoffs and win a Super Bowl with this style of offense? And I think you can. I just think Lamar has to get a little bit better, or significant. I'm not gonna say a little bit. He needs to get significantly better. Like, keep the same style, run the read option, do all that. I wouldn't change that at all. But he's got to add the element of like, okay, I'm proficient in the passing game, and I would not call him proficient in the passing game right now.
Yes, I think, and that's why we've seen it. We've seen it, this pattern with him, with Tennessee, with Pittsburgh, with Kansas City. Those games when you start playing legit good teams with good coaches that can game plan against that style, he can't win those games. I mean, he beat Tennessee in the playoffs this year. Give him that. But I think he can. And I think eventually he very well might, but not at the same level of the passing game as he is now. And look, he's only in his 3rd year. I think he could get it done, but it's on him, to me. Stop making these excuses about they need to get a receiver and that they need a better passing game coordinator or they need to develop him as a passer. Stop apologizing. We don't do that for other quarterbacks. He needs to get better as a passer himself, or they're not gonna win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Buddy, what do you think, man? I want to hear your thoughts.
I was just gonna say, I've heard all the talk about, there's basically like Ravens fans and media all saying that, oh, Greg Roman's the problem, he's not catering it enough. And obviously I disagree and think that, they're all like Lamar. It's pretty much kind of like what me and Trav have said. It's like they're all apologists for Lamar, like, oh, he can do no wrong, like no matter how bad he plays, how bad he throws the ball. Like, for instance, I brought up the Tennessee game where he threw that really god-awful pick early in the game. Not even the guys that were doing color commentary and the halftime show and stuff. None of them brought up the fact of like that was probably the worst throw in playoff history that you could make, and they just kind of say like, oh well, look, it was bad, and they didn't say anything about like, oh, he should have gone here, he should have gone there. He had 2 other reads that were clear as day, but my question, and I've been thinking about it all week, is how long do you give Lamar? How many years? Because he's up for a contract soon. Do you give him that 4 to 5 year, big, top of the line quarterback money that he's going to want, or do you just say, hey, we're just going to give you, we're going to go year by year until you prove that you can actually be a legitimate passer in this league? If you're a Ravens fan or the Ravens coaching,
Yeah, in this situation, I don't know. I think about the Dak situation in Dallas, which is kind of what you're talking about. Them doing is what they're doing in Dallas with Dak.
Franchise him. Yeah.
If I had to pick between Dak and Lamar, I'm taking Dak as my quarterback. And so if they're doing that to Dak Prescott, who I think is way better than Lamar Jackson, I gotta think that the Ravens have some reservations about giving him long-term big money. That's just the way I feel about it personally.
I don't know that I'd back talk on, giving him long-term deal. I mean, I think he's proven enough to get a deal, but I mean, I guess it's just, I don't know. We'll see. It's hard.
Does he get paid like a running back, or does he get paid like a quarterback?
I mean, that's not.
I'm not saying that to be
question.
mean.
I know, I understand that because you've even talked about this. You claimed you had a hot take earlier in this.
Yeah.
In our season of this podcast, where you said you think Lamar will not be a real starter in the next few
3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my thing is
so
are you?
Will
can
he
you,
be
can
the
we?
next RG3 and just fade out?
Yeah. Can we all four sit here and I mean I'm not saying this to be disrespectful to Lamar, but can we all sit here and not seriously say that you would pay if you were the Ravens, would you seriously consider paying him $40 million a year to run around like a running back and not be able to develop as a thrower? I'm not going to do that if I'm the Ravens.
No.
I would not. I would not give him 40.
And that's what the top quarterbacks are getting,
Here's my thing. I expect him to get better. It's one area of his game. He needs to get a little, just become a solid pass. He doesn't have to be a great passer until maybe he's older and his legs go, but that's a little ways off. Long ways off for him. He just needs to get significantly better.
He needs to be decent.
He just needs to go from
Michael Vick level, maybe
as a passer right now. Just get me to 6 or 7. Just give me a couple of notches to where you're good enough to do that, and then I think they can win. So it's not a huge improvement I think he has to make. It's just a decent improvement in passing game, and I think he can do that. Get him a wide receiver. That it starts with that. That is a valid reason, a valid excuse to give him. I still think the main reason is his own personal shortcomings. Get him a good receiver, and then he develops another year or two as a passer, which most quarterbacks in the NFL do, and I think they can do it. I think they'll be fine. I would keep him.
I'd give him next year. If he doesn't show improvement next year, that's when I start thinking okay, I don't think I can give him a deal. Maybe you franchise him because I think next year is when he's up for a new contract. This is his
and
last,
you have to think about
year.
You have to think about that was his first real injury with that concussion, and those things can start piling up with the way that he plays.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
He's been fortunate.
I've been wondering for the last 2 years.
He has been.
It's very few teams that commit to running their quarterback like the Ravens have, in the last 2 years.
He's not the biggest guy either.
That's always a question of can he stay healthy? And as they get farther down the line, maybe the Ravens' plan was by now they already would have stopped running it 15 times a game with Lamar. But because maybe he hasn't developed like they thought he would as a passer, and they feel like they have to win.
Right.
They haven't been able to transition yet.
If that's the case, and then they are worried about the injuries, and which is fair, no quarterbacks run it like this, then you might have a real discussion where maybe we need to move on because we don't want to have Maybe for 8 years they don't want to run their quarterback 15 times a game, and they don't feel like he's progressed at the end of his contract.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe they're just hey, we have a 3-year window here. Maybe they're hey, we have a 2 to 3 year window here where he's going to be in the prime as a runner, in this kind of scheme of offense. Let's just take advantage of it, try to load up on some talent, and see if we can win the Super Bowl.
And that's why when Dan said he'll be out of the league in a couple years, I wouldn't go that strong, but I do think in general the shelf life on Lamar is short because I don't ever see him being a great passer. And once his athleticism starts to dwindle just enough,
he's
28, definitely by the time he's closing in on 30, it'll be gone.
That's why,
if I can't throw, I won't be around anymore. And I think be an 8-year guy as opposed to a 15 or 17-year guy.
I think the difference between someone said Mike Vick. Mike Vick had an amazing arm.
Yeah, that's what I said. If he had Mike Vick arm stats, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, but he's not even.
You don't even have to be that good though.
But look, when I watch Lamar, you know what I think? I think if Mike Vick had Greg Roman and John Harbaugh and they committed to running it like that,
Yep.
He would throw it. If they threw it 22 times a game with Vic, he would go 18 for 22 for like 220 because he could throw it long. He had decent accuracy. He had better accuracy than Lamar. But the arm strength and the way he threw the ball, it's not even comparable to Lamar.
And later in his career,
Lamar throws this piddly little ball. He doesn't have a strong arm. It's not
zip.
Yeah. Look, freaking Mike Vick, man, he threw a dart. He threw a ball 70 yards on a rope.
To me,
later in his career in Philadelphia, he actually became very good at reading his progressions as well.
Yeah.
Which was really, like,
he's admitted it. I remember.
But I'm just saying, even then, they weren't running the read option and utilizing his legs because then he was too old. But just imagine Mike Vick in a system where he got to run it
in Atlanta
12 times a game and then just throw it.
Yeah.
Based off because you know how much easier it is to throw the ball when people have to worry about the running game.
Yeah.
Mike Vick would have flourished and something like that.
That's why to me, the battle of those, the best combination of those talents is what you basically have in Deshaun Watson. And I don't think they run Deshaun Watson enough because they're too worried about him getting injured. Yeah. But I think he's capable of running like Mike Vick used to run. Personally, they could run some.
No, he's not as athletic because he's a little bit bigger guy. He's not going to run as athletic and as speedy as a Lamar or a Mike Vick, but he definitely could do more like Mahomes. You know what I mean? Like really fast for their size, and they could run you over more so. And if they were able to use that, but I mean, back then and even now, most people aren't going to run their quarterback like that. It's very rare to see somebody commit to we're going to use our quarterback as a running back type. Like it's very rare to see that. Which it would surprise me that the Ravens have done it this long because eventually I do think the injuries might come.
Yep. So
and that's why for me, my biggest comparison is RG3. Like he's on that same level of passing. He's just a much better runner than RG3 was.
Yep. So moving on. Obviously, we'll see. We kind of got off track there a little bit, but we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see Mahomes go up against Josh Allen and the Bills and kind of see what can happen there. Yep. But like you guys said, you never know what a week worth of Chad Henne practice can do. They do have a lot of weapons on that offense, and their defense has gotten better. Mm-hmm. So, switching gears into the NFC. We're gonna touch first on the Bucs Saints, which was a really good game for the most part. Three of us on the panel here have strong convictions about the way that game went, and kind of one team kind of throwing away a lot of opportunities there and handing it to Tom Brady, as seems to be the case with anybody that plays Tom Brady in the playoffs. And it could possibly be Drew Brees' last performance, as most of the speculation says. So, why don't you start us off, Aggie?
Yeah, like you said, it was a good game. It was close. I mean, it was never like out of reach for either team. It was very close, and it was just, man, it was just disappointing for me. You know, as a guy who I really like Drew Brees, and we talked about last week when they played Chicago and how we were a little iffy on their offense and how they looked not moving the ball as well as we thought they would. But then we were like, well, Chicago does have a good D, kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt, but. This week it was kind of like a repeat of that one. And I'll say this: I do think that Taysom Hill being out was something that was affected that. I think that hurts them not being able to come out with that package like 8, 9, 10 times a game, where that throws the defense off, and that's just something different that the defense has to look at. That's a difference maker. I mean, now I'm not saying that would have made a difference in that. That's why they lost, and if he was in, they would have won. I'm not going to say that at all. But overall, it was just disappointing to see a guy that I really like in Drew Brees play the way he did. And, I'm never one to say, I don't like to be like that guy needs to hang it up, but I just look at the way he played and the way he's kind of declined a little this year in general. And I think, all the speculation says he will. And I just feel like it probably is time for him, which is sad to me because I really like him. But yeah, I think the Bucs played well. They did what they had to do, but I think the Saints kind of just crap the bed on offense.
Yeah, if you watch that game, it went a lot like the last half or the last quarter of the season for the Saints went, and which is basically since Brees came back from the injury, and even when Brees was hurt, because Taysom Hill wasn't any better, which is why I don't blame them for staying with Brees and this long and everything, because they just didn't have a better option. Taysom Hill's not ready to be the every down guy, but it did hurt that he wasn't there for his package. That would have definitely hurt. And they even threw in a little gadget that worked this time, because I think Sean Payton knew it all along with Taysom Hill getting as much burn this year with that package as he did all year. The bottom line is, in that game, the Saints defense played great, and the Bucs defense played pretty solid too. It was a defensive game that was close, and the difference in the game was the interceptions from Brees and the fumble, obviously, from Jared Cook as well. The turnovers totally changed the game. That pick six, I mean, that was like it flipped it. So, and then the fumble, they get the fumble, they take it down to the 40-yard line, they punch it in, and then the last pick. So, I mean, the game turned on the turnovers, and primarily that was because of Brees. So, Breeze did not play well all year. He just didn't. At the first 8 or 10 games, I felt like, okay, he was figuring some things out. It looked like there was some there. And then you're like, oh, Michael Thomas isn't there. That's probably a big reason. And then Michael Thomas comes back. They had the one good game versus the Bucks. Breeze gets hurt again, so they still can't play together. Then Breeze comes back and Michael Thomas is out again. And you're just thinking, all right, when they get everybody together, maybe it'll work. But after seeing them in 2 playoff games and their offense was still stagnant and just struggled to move the ball against both games, it's apparent to me that Breeze just did not have it this year. I'm going to assume it's because he just needs to hang it up. If that's the best Drew Brees has to offer now, he's got to go. He was terrible.
He just can't throw the ball more than 20 yards. He just can't.
He just couldn't get it. He couldn't get the ball to spots. I mean, all year really at times, but especially since he came back from the injury and then these playoffs, I'm just seeing guys break open for the Saints, and it's just like the ball's short. It's late. It just doesn't look like it has the zip to get there, and it's like, it was sad to see because I thought I kind of put it off for a lot of the year. There was a lot of talk about him not getting the ball down the field the first 5 games. Like, the stats were down. He couldn't get the ball down the field. There was a lot of talk about that. And we were like, oh, give it time. Breeze will be fine. And I think to some extent he improved. But it was clear that Drew Brees was the reason that this offense wasn't good this year. And it's sad to say it. You would never have thought it. And he was the reason that they are out of the playoffs because that game is all on him with the interceptions. And that's the only reason they lost that game.
They had to bring Jameson to throw a touchdown.
If he just protected the ball, I think they would have found a way to get it done. Their defense played great. I think if he just holds on to the ball, they probably win the game. And he didn't. He couldn't.
Yep. Dan, I know you want to take a minute to gloat at least before we move on to the next game, since you did get
absolutely.
The pick right.
First of all, even though y'all had technical difficulties, I definitely just want to let y'all know that you were trying to call me out for my Bucks pick, and I was the one person here who stood by his conviction on picking the Bucks. They were my Super Bowl pick, and I was going to ride that train the whole way. So,
well, no, I don't think you were crazy for picking the Bucks. First of all, I thought the Bucks would win the game, but my Super Bowl pick was the Saints, so I wanted to stay on the train too. But I thought the Bucks would win that game because of what it was, because Breeze their offense couldn't move the ball, and they didn't.
Second of all, I want to give credit at the beginning of the year, and we talked about this. The Bucks defense can play better than kind of sometimes what we give them credit for. I don't think we realized how important Devin White was to the Bucks defense, and he was out for the Redskins game, but he was all over the place defensively in that game. The other thing, Drew Brees definitely has regressed, but Michael Thomas came out after the last game and said, I got to go have surgery on all this stuff. I didn't want to miss out on playing the last year with Brees, so I came back and I haven't been healthy, but he has to go have surgery on
of course.
a
2
couple
surgeries,
different things.
Yeah.
So as much as we want to give Breeze, I just think they're a team that's been making deep runs for a long time, and we know that takes a toll on teams, and I think that played a part as well. But I think Tom Brady did exactly what he does in the playoffs. He doesn't turn the football over most of the time. Every now and then you'll see him do something, and we're all like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he did that. He didn't turn the ball over. The Buccaneers actually ran the ball pretty well against one of the top-rated defenses against the run in the NFL. So I was very impressed with that. Leonard Fournette is having like kind of a second coming here. So I think some of the stuff that they're doing. It doesn't look like a Bruce Arians offense where he just wants to run and gun it. They're running the ball a lot. They're using a lot of tight ends. There are more short passes. But what's also happening is Bruce Arians, you can see a stamp on the offense. They're still throwing the ball deep, and in that game they didn't really complete too many. But I just think that after them being together for the whole year, this is the product that you're going to get from the Bucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they can win it all or not, but I just think that this is what you're going to get in this year.
Look, you can say all the stuff about, and they did run the ball good. And I think that was a key factor. But at the end of the day, the Saints defense bottled them up and did what they needed to do. They just got put in 2 or 3 too many situations where they are down on their own goal line because of the turnovers. So Devin White didn't miss most of the year. The Bucks defense collapsed the second half of the year, and Devin White was there the whole time. So I think the Bucks were made to look like, okay, first of all, they get in the playoffs. They kind of like the Ravens. They hit this middle of the year thing where everyone was like down on them. Then they had an easy schedule the last 4 games, and they got their ship righted like good teams do against bad teams. So it made them look good. Then they got the Redskins in the playoffs, and they got a Saints team that was terrible on offense for the last 4 or 5 games, really wasn't good all year on offense, and it made their defense look good, and it made their Tom doesn't turn over. He was not playing well. They couldn't hit passes down the game. I mean, he was like 4 for something going into almost halftime. They couldn't complete passes. I mean, but the problem was Breeze not only was the same way, but he did that plus threw the ball to the other team. Yep. So you can say that the Bucs got right and they've righted the ship. And I don't think the Bucs are that much different than they were 6 or 8 weeks ago, which was just, they're a fringe playoff team and team people weren't that high on them. I think it's what we've talked about all year. The NFC doesn't have a great team. So
I think one of the things that we talked about with the Bucs is that if the Bucs didn't turn the ball over as much as they did last year, they probably would have been a playoff team last year. And so what they did with Brady coming in is they're not turning the ball over, which always puts you in the game no matter what. But you're right.
They added
right, but I think my point is, and Dan, I don't think you would disagree with it that much. Give them credit. They won. Like any team that wins and gets to the density, give them full credit. I mean, they deserve some level of credit. But we're seeing the weak NFC play out where we all
I do agree with that.
Wouldn't be shocked if any of the top 5 got there because we don't love any of the top 5. So there's no team where you'd be like, oh, I don't think that team can beat that team, so they can't get. Any team can beat any team because none of them are that good. I don't think the Packers are that good.
So taking that into the next game, obviously we don't really need to talk too much about the Packers game against the Rams. It was kind of boring. Packers seem to control it pretty much for the most part, but now we're looking at Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Everybody said, oh, it's only took us 17 years to get this game or whatever. In a meaningful game. So what do you guys make? Do you think the Packers are legit? They looked pretty good against the Rams. Obviously the Rams had some deficiencies with coming off the injury for Goff, and then Aaron Donald not being 100%. Obviously, he wasn't even close to it. But what do you guys make of the Packers? Dan?
Yeah, I think the Packers is for me, the big thing is they're running the football pretty well. And I think when they do that, I mean, and we know how good Aaron Rodgers is, by himself. If they get a running game going, it just makes him that much more dangerous. So as long as they're running the ball, and then their defense is playing at a pretty nice level. I still have them kind of not the best defense that I've ever seen play, but I feel like the Bills defense and their defense are kind of on the same level. They're probably going to give up points. They're going to give up yards, but they're going to make you work for it. They're kind of a bend but don't break type of a defense. And if they can get a couple turnovers, I mean, especially with Aaron Rodgers on the other side, it can quickly get ugly. But I'm with Trav. The NFC is weak, so I could see the Packers, winning that game, but I could also see the Bucs going in there and just taking care of business again, because we don't know sometimes who we're going to get. We've seen this is the point where we'll all get on the Packers bandwagon.
Exactly.
And they'll go crap to bed.
Dude, I was just about to say, the way the Packers look the last 2 weeks, or I guess they only had one playoff game. So the last few weeks of the season plus this playoff game, I'm finally ready to buy in, but I'm with you, Dan.
I know.
I still don't trust them. Do I expect them to beat the Bucs? Because I'm a little more down on the Bucs than I'm in the Packers, and the fact that it's going to be in Lambeau Field, and the Packers look better to me in the last few weeks than the Bucs do, even though
Chris Godwin won't drop any passes in the cold weather, I bet.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm ready to buy in and be like, okay, the Packers are that team in the NFC. Maybe there is one good team in the NFC that could go and beat the Chiefs or the Bills in the Super Bowl. But as soon as I say that, I know. And it won't surprise me at all if the Bucs come in and win that game. And I'm not high on the Bucs at all, like I just said. I'm not high on either team, but I am a little higher, or significantly higher, on the Packers. So I expect the Packers will win the game in Lambeau, in the cold weather. And I think people give too much credence to the whole cold weather. I keep hearing everybody talking about it's impossible to win in Lambeau, but it's it wasn't impossible to win in Lambeau with fans. It's definitely not impossible without. It's they think that there aren't other cold weather stadiums. It's baffling.
Well, and Brady played in the cold for a long time. Brady's used to the cold.
He's not gonna.
I'll say this: I have no qualms on this show ever of letting my fanhood be known, and I just hope to God that Aaron Rodgers can beat Brady.
I think they'll get it done, but I'm just saying, I'm with you, Dan. I don't trust the Packers, and so if the Bucs win, I'm not going to be surprised. But given the way the Packers looked last week, and they have, they beat a good Tennessee team about a month ago. I don't really have anybody in the Bucs in the last 6 weeks that they've beaten that I've really thought was impressive. So I do think the Packers will get it done. And I think their offense is going to move the ball. I think they're going to run it. I think they're going to do whatever they want on offense. I think this game might get a little more higher scoring. I think the Bucs will have some success on offense too, but won't be surprised at all if the Packers lay another egg and lose by 17. Because let's face it, these two teams played in week 6 or 7, and that game was in Tampa Bay. But that game
should not have gone. That game turned quickly. It was 10-0 Packers. He threw the pick 6, and then they never looked back. I don't think it's going to go that way. I don't think it's going to be that type of game, and I hope it's not that kind of game just for the viewers, for us to have a good game to
You
watch.
trust the Packers not to have that type
But
of game again?
I do. I
Sure.
do. I think that they're going to come out. I think Aaron Rodgers himself personally is going to have a vendetta of like, okay, like people want to say me versus Brady. They want to say that he's the GOAT. Like they pouted us in week 6 or whatever it was. Like we're in our home field now. It's when it matters most. I'm going to win this game, and I'm going to, get my Rodgers rate, and I'm going to take it to the Super Bowl. It will be hilarious if it's Mahomes versus Rodgers, since they're buddies on.
That would be awesome.
Buddies.
That would be.
The NFL wants Mahomes. I mean, everybody.
Oh,
wants that.
yeah.
Why would you
Mahomes
not
versus
want that?
Rodgers. I mean, that
For
is
sure, man.
That is what it. That's the pinnacle right there. If we can get that.
The worst thing that could ever happen is going to be Bills Bucks.
What if it's Brady versus Allen? Like,
Oh man,
Dude.
I would be
Listen,
rooting
in
for
order-
Josh Allen so hard.
In order of teams that I want to win, it goes probably Chiefs, Packers there, then Bills, and then you got to go down underneath the ground all the way down to the other side of the earth, and then I'd rather the Super Bowl get canceled than Brady win.
I'm actually rooting for the Bills, kind of like way up here, personally. And
Yeah.
then,
Let's say Bills first, yeah.
like I know I picked the Bucks to be in the year, but I know a lot of people who are Bills fans. Shout
Yeah.
out to them.
I'd be okay
Y'all
with it.
having a great
They
ride.
suffered
The
enough
Bills
in
have
the
never
90s.
won one, right? They
No,
they've never had
they
one.
just
right?
lost 3 in a row. They've
They
suffered.
never won the ring.
They've
They
suffered.
went 4
They
in a
lost
row.
4
They
in a
lost
row.
4 in a
Yeah,
Four
four
row.
in a row. Yeah, they've suffered enough in the 90s, so I would be okay if the Bills won. But I'm only okay if the Bills get there if it's against the Packers, because I know that there's no way Tom Brady's going to let Josh Allen beat him in the Super Bowl. It's just
Jared
not gonna
Allen?
happen. Yeah,
Throwback
he's
to
not
the
going to let
Vikings
Josh
pass
Allen
rusher.
beat him in the Super Bowl. Bottom line. But before we wrap up our show today, just a reminder that Sunday, I think at 2 or 2:30, we will be doing our pregame show with no technical difficulties this time. So join us.
I'll be there, guys.
Join us for that, and it'll be for all 4 of us, maybe 3 of us, depending on how Aggie is after his post dental work procedure that he's gonna have. But yeah, join us for that. We'll go we'll go through our picks, and we'll have Aggie's picks regardless of if he's on the show or not. Maybe he can write in some comments from the comment section if he's in the peanut gallery for that show.
Can you humor us by just showing up? That would be awesome.
I'll just sit here and I'll just be
Yeah.
like, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Basically. But yeah, join us for that as we'll pick the 2 games. So looking ahead, we obviously Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. It's going to be a great game. I think that's the 3 o'clock game, right?
Yep.
And then you
NFC
get
at
the
3.
NFC at 3, and then AFC, the old Josh Allen versus Chad Henne / Patrick Mahomes. We'll see who starts. Hopefully it's Mahomes. I think
What
everybody
if it's
wants that.
Henne versus Brady, the Battle of Michigan? That
God,
would be so.
that would be boring to watch. But yeah, that's gonna wrap up our show. Thanks for joining us again. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and find our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And tune in on Sunday at 2 for our pregame show. What is it? Championship Sunday show. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about Dan? I know you said you had some Drew Brees legacy you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I want. Yeah, just going to the post show here. No one has left any questions, so I just think it would be fun to talk about this. For many years here, okay, we got the Saints. Drew Brees, I think statistically, one of the top QBs in the history of the NFL. But for all their success in the regular season, they only come out, if Drew Brees retires, they're only going to come out of all that winning, all that making the playoffs with 1 Super Bowl. And I'm just wondering from you guys, like, how do you view that legacy if you're Sean Payton, Drew Brees, after all that?
Look, I want to say something about that, because I think a lot of people, you look at Tom Brady and Belichick and what they did over their stretch, that is like so far the exception to the rule. It is so hard to win a freaking Super Bowl, dude. So I think if you win one, that's a huge accomplishment to me.
Yep, I have something for that.
I think so many people think oh, you should be able to win 2 or 3 in that span, as good as this quarterback and this coach are. But it's so hard to put a season together. You have injuries, you have other things that come up, and it's like, just because Tom Brady and Belichick have done it so many times, it's just I get a little annoyed when people are like, oh, they should have won more than that in his career. It's hard to win a Super Bowl, man. Only one team can do it out of 32. So
Right.
Yeah,
if
I
you
agree.
win one, that's a huge accomplishment to me.
I agree. Look, I mean, sustained success is mostly to me what you can ask for. be a good team most of the year. Give yourself a chance at Super Bowls so that you could maybe win one of them. I don't really look at it as failures when guys who have 10 to 12-year runs in any sport and they win like six or eight division titles in a 10-year span. They go to a couple Super Bowls, maybe only win one, or maybe don't even win any, and teams look at it as like, oh, they were a failure. Man, to win a Super Bowl, you got to catch a lot of breaks.
You do.
You gotta
definitely.
have, and not even catch, like, you just got to make sure you don't catch bad. There's so many bad breaks you can catch, and you got to hope that you don't catch a bunch of them along the way. Look at the Chiefs right now. If Mahomes left the start, they're likely going to lose, and that will be the reason. Boom. They didn't get a chance. Now, there's no guarantee they would have won it.
Travis having nightmare flashbacks of Kevin Durant all over again.
It's like
it's
like
the Warriors though.
It's like Juddy with the Fire Tomlin thing. I'm like, all right, let's look at everything he's done. It's hard to win Super Bowls. It's hard to go to a Super Bowl. It's hard to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So when you look at a body of work and a coach who's won that many divisions, never had a losing season, and this is just an example, and then people might look back and like, oh, they only won 2, and we have won 2 with him, and it's like that's about all you can ask for. The New England thing is a total. It's not going to happen again.
We only have one with him, right? He had one with Cal or one with Tomlin, right?
Yeah, we got to 2.
My
went to another one.
Went to 2, 1-1. Yeah, 1-1 with Cowher. So yeah, went to 2, and all that. So I'm with you, Aggie. I'm with you. It's just too hard to win to look at a guy and say they won, probably 8 divisions, and they went to one Super Bowl.
Here's
and
the thing.
And didn't get to any more or win any more. It's hard for me to call that a failure.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'm glad you brought that up, Aggie, because there's a guy that I follow. His name is Stats Guy Daniel on Twitter. He's a great follow, Dan, by the way.
That's my other handle on Twitter.
Oh, it's your burner. Okay. He's a Steelers fan, so it's definitely not yours. But he posted this. He posted these comments. This was after the Ravens loss. He basically said, how the Ravens have done since winning the Super Bowl 8 seasons ago. They're 2-4 in the playoffs. They went one and done twice. They have not reached a conference final, and they've missed the playoffs 4 times. And then he said, winning is hard. And then he posted again, and he said, New Orleans Saints, since their last Super Bowl, 11 seasons, postseason record of 5-7, 1 appearance in an NFC title game, went one and done twice, and missed the playoffs 4 times. He said, this is your latest segment of winning consistently in the NFL is hard. And then he said, Seahawks, since their last Super Bowl appearance, 6 seasons. They've gone 3-5 in the postseason. They went one and done twice, haven't reached the NFC title game, and they missed the postseason twice. He said, this is with prime Russell Wilson. He said, again, winning consistently in the NFL is very hard to do. It just proves everything.
All the best teams in the last 10 years, because you could throw the Steelers right on that list since ours, and I've seen it from people.
Yep.
They basically a thing that was going out there was like they basically rationalized how we won our first Super Bowl. They rationalized how we got to our second, and then all the failures that have gone since as like terrible playoff losses. It's like some of those playoff losses are bad for certain teams, but it's like they're playoff teams for the most part, unless a 7-9 team's getting in there, which is rare. They're playoff teams too for a reason. And you can look at every team outside of the Patriots for the last 15 years, and they probably have losing playoff records.
It's everybody wants to compare to the Patriots.
Only
everybody can do that.
Yeah,
right. Nobody does that, dude. That's such an anomaly. It's crazy.
For me, I don't judge the Saints off the Patriots, but what I hear a lot of times is I hear people putting them up way high up here, like they do the Patriots, when they're the greatest combination. Peyton and Breeze, they have had the most regular season success probably of any duo outside of the Patriots over the same course of the same period of time. But they have lost so amazingly in the playoffs
they had a spurt where they were out of the playoffs for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah,
right. They did, but I think overall, like eight division titles, they've had like a lot of success.
You could look at the Steelers and since then, and as far as it's pretty similar.
Listen, the thing that I like to say is
for me, I feel like they underachieved. Like I feel, and I'm not saying it's not hard, and I'm not comparing them with, but I feel like I would, with how good they have been over that period of time, that Drew Brees should be walking away with more Super Bowls than
the last 3 seasons is the kicker for me.
Eli Manning or whatever.
But I'll say this about that, Dan. That might be true. I disagree with that.
They also got jobbed on a bad pass interference call.
But
there's
the Saints' defense was habitually terrible until about 2 years ago.
Yeah,
that was the reason that when they were in their prime because they hit their dud years in like 2013, 14, 15, they were really bad. Like not bad, but they were like 7-9, 8-8, 10, like 3 years straight. But before that, like 06, I think when Breeze got there and they went, they won the Super Bowl.
Through 09. 09 was
06 to 12, basically. Their defense was bad, like really bad most years.
Yeah.
and they were decent the one year they won the Super Bowl. They were just good enough. So I don't put it on Sean Payton or Drew Brees, which you could put that on Sean Payton because he's the head coach. He's part of the
Right.
but offense was always his thing. So it's definitely not on Brees though of why they didn't win more. To me,
I think
they needed to win more in that first prime run. They didn't have the defense to do it.
I think the last 3 seasons have been the ones that have really been like they've had a lot of talent. Whether even if their defense wasn't great for but for the last 2, these were the last 3 years where there was we have one of the most talented rosters on both sides of the football. We should be winning more.
But look, I go back to the bad break thing.
Yeah, I get it.
Think about the
terrible pass interference.
I remember it. Yep.
Think about the 2. Yeah.
And then the Vikings miracle, the Minnesota miracle.
Think about the pass interference.
That's what I'm saying.
Helmet to helmet hit. If they get that call, they go to the Super Bowl. And then I think they beat the Pats.
The Pats weren't that great that year.
And then you talk about breaks going your way, dude. Think about the Baltimore year they won the Super Bowl. The Denver thing where the guy comes up and plays a horrible deep pass like 4 yards.
Hail Mary.
Flacco beat him.
That doesn't happen. If you just play decent defense right there, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything has to line up your way to go that way.
Best teams don't always win, and I don't think it means that they were. Sometimes you just play
underachieved. I wouldn't use that word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like every time, it's just bad luck, but there are so many things that happen during the course of a year that you have to hope don't happen bad luck wise.
Right.
And that can cost you a game to where it's like it's more than just that
well,
to me.
Think about it too. Like say that let's just hypothetically say the Steelers win, Say the Steelers beat the Browns and the Ravens go. If Mahomes goes out against the Ravens might be a better team to come back and win that game. And then the Ravens all of a sudden are in the AFC Championship game. It just matters what happened. Like it's fluky, obviously.
Yeah, football is such a different game, dude. It's such a different game than like baseball or basketball. Like basketball, the best team typically is going to win. Plus, they play series. So, like football, anything can happen in that one game. Look at the Pittsburgh and the Cleveland game, dude. A snap goes over his head, and then right from the start, you're starting in the hole. You're starting off bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, football is just a crazy game that way.
Yep.
Yeah. I listen. I think Drew Brees is going to retire. I think I'll look back at this like I know how I felt as an Eagles fan. Anytime we had to play them, there was like this like gut wrenching. You knew that Drew Brees was going to be super efficient. You knew they were going to move the ball. You knew they were going to execute, and you knew that you had to almost play a perfect game to beat them. And I think that's the way that I felt. And so that's why I always wondered in the playoffs, like, what the heck happened? Like how did Minnesota, have that miracle? Because that year,
they had 2 fluky things back-to-back years, man. They might have won 2 Super Bowls right there, but crazy things happen.
And it kind of makes me mad that like
Eli's
going to have more Super Bowl wins than Drew Brees. I just feel like that's an injustice.
But listen,
Drew Brees
it is. But the whole thing about quarterbacks getting judged by Super Bowl rings is ridiculous to me.
So you got to miss me because I'm the wrong guy to sit here and people sit here and judge quarterbacks based on their rings. Listen, you don't win a ring as a quarterback alone. It takes a great team and a great coaching staff and a great organization to win Super Bowls. Eli Manning can't.
Trent Dilfer has a ring.
Yeah. Okay. I don't care.
Trent Dilfer's the real deal.
He wasn't half the quarterback that Drew Brees was, and he has 2 rings. So what? He had the Giants defense. Okay. Brees never had that, as I just alluded to.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's actually funny that we were talking about the whole like how hard it is to win consistently. And people like to knock, and they always joke and say, oh, yeah, like the whole Mike Tomlin argument. Like, oh, he's never had a losing season. Ben's never had a losing season. But that's hard to do. Like, that is something you should hang your hat on about, like, being a successful coach and a successful quarterback in the league is to not have – because all these guys that are the same teams, the Saints had losing seasons. The Seahawks have had losing seasons in there. Like, all those coaches that are the greatest coaches have had losing seasons. So
as an Eagles fan, when Andy Reid was, like, running the show and we had 4 NFC champions.
Yeah, y'all were great, man.
I probably
kept making championship games and like winning divisional rounds and stuff like that and getting there. But it was just like the whole knock was, well, he can't win the Super Bowl.
Look, man,
he can't win the Super Bowl.
The problem is people just don't realize you're one team of 32 gets to win it all every year.
Yeah.
If you're one of the 4 or 5 teams who has the 10 to 12 or 15-year spurt where you're in the playoffs almost every year and winning 6 or 8 divisions in that time span, you need to realize how lucky you are to have a chance year after year to win it. Because the best way to win one is to give yourself the most chances year after year. If you're a team that's good for 1 year and then you're bad for 4 years, you're probably never going to win one. But if you're in it every year, you'll eventually probably have a good chance and win one.
Yeah, I think
That's all
people
you can
also
ask for is a real chance.
A real
people don't
chance,
realize the system is set up so that the teams that are good don't stay good.
Exactly.
Like,
that's why
that's
the
what-
draft. That's the whole premise of the
Right.
draft.
The salary cap. Yeah, I mean, like you have to
And waivers.
figure out who you're going to pay and how much, and then you have to find a way to balance your freaking salary cap to pay everybody to be good enough. If you pay too many people too much, then you're good on one side of the ball or good in a couple positions, but then you're not a balanced team and you can't win that way either. So it's just hard.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the Patriots are definitely an anomaly. There's not something you can compare the rest of the
100%.
league to.
Yeah.
It's just wild. It's hard to do that, and I don't think we'll see another team that does that similarly. Even like you said, like last year, I think I remember telling Trav too, and even earlier this year, like man, like the Chiefs are about to be a dynasty. They're about to go Patriot status and win like 6 Super Bowls in 12 years. And he was like, man, he said you don't build dynasties that way. This that, and it's true. I mean, the thing is, like, look at what happened to Mahomes. Like, if he doesn't play and they lose, it's like, okay, there's 1 year, and then next year they'll probably lose some guys to free agency, and they won't be the same team, and then eventually Bieniemy will get a head coaching job, hopefully, and it won't have the same.
As long as they have that
offensive,
guy playing quarterback, they'll be in the hunt.
Yeah, they'll
They
be in the
may
hunt,
not win
obviously,
it.
but you never know what can happen. You know,
Right.
I mean, look at Peyton Manning,
But that's
greatest
the difference
quarterback of all
between the
time, and he's still
Patriots,
only
too.
the 1-2.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, maybe not the greatest of all
Well,
time.
what,
Yeah,
Aggie?
you went.
Let's see. Well, before
Hey,
the difference is too with New England. The difference with New England too is that, like with Mahomes, right, in Kansas City, they've already paid him a ton of money, give him that huge contract. Brady always was constantly like restructuring his deals and like not getting the highest end of money, so that they could kind of balance the team
Right.
throughout. You know, obviously in the end, that's what kind of did him in.
They didn't
and what
really
he got
do a
tired
lot
of.
with that extra
Right,
money.
exactly.
Yeah.
At the end, he was
end,
kind of
yeah.
like,
Right.
yeah, you're taking all this money from me, you're not doing anything. I still got crap on my team.
So
So
Peyton Manning plays for the Patriots, and he's Tom Brady. Does he win as many, more, or less?
As many.
that's a very difficult. Probably
I think
the same,
easily as
yeah.
many. I think
I
easily
would
as
just
many.
say somewhere roughly the same, maybe one less, maybe one more. Who knows? Probably not
Right.
one more. I mean, it's really hard to say you win more than 6 Super Bowls in 15 years or whatever it was.
I
18
will
years.
say yes. I will agree
But
that some of the
He
knock
is
on
every
Peyton,
bit the quarterback that Tom Brady was, and I think he was better. The best guy I ever saw sling it out there was Peyton Manning.
mentally, yeah,
In my
mentally
30,
to
30
me,
years of watching football.
I think between the ears, he was the best ever. And
I agree with you, Aggie.
you know what I mean? Especially the pre-snap stuff. He was the one who started all that stuff, the pre-snap stuff.
Yeah.
Like he was
So then-
the first guy
He
to do that stuff.
reinvented offensive football.
So then
Yes.
what? So then what
Absolutely.
would you? How do you stake your claim that Tom Brady is the greatest ever, if not between the head, because he's obviously not the most athletic or doesn't have the best arm? So how would you say Brady is better than Manning?
I think Brady's the most clutch quarterback.
He's
of
the
all
most
time.
successful quarterback of all time.
He's the
That's
winningest-
easy.
he's
Obviously, the winningest.
quarterback
Yeah,
ever.
successful
Yeah,
winningest,
that's
of
it for
course.
me.
That's obvious. That's based
The
on
greatest
stats. I'm
at a
talking about
position,
playing
I mean-
wise.
But I would also say in
It's
the big
hard.
moments, he made the plays. He's more like the MJ than Peyton Manning was in football.
I will say that,
But
he
you're
did
in
have
because
bad
you're in
games
the
in the
moment.
playoffs.
Yeah,
because
but he
got
was
moment
there.
moment
Yeah, he
chances.
got there.
He did. He did.
Which is a team
Team thing.
True, but when
I agree with
Peyton
that.
did have
Peyton
those
Manning had
moments, he
pretty
did
good
have
teams
some
for a
bad
long
moments.
time too.
Their defense sucked. most
Yeah,
of
their
the
defense was
years.
never good.
True.
They also had Mike Vanderjagt
It's
It's
miss
hard.
a
It's just
48
hard to
yarder.
compare.
There
It's just hard to
were
compare.
years where they statistically looked good, but everybody knew year after year you could punch the Colts in the mouth by running
Yeah.
it right down their throats every
Yep.
year in the postseason if you wanted to.
Yep, and that keeps Peyton off the field too. So I mean,
Yeah, I think the best
Look, I
arm to
don't-
me is
look, it's
Rodgers.
it's too hard. It's
Me-
hard to compare them. They
That
have
me,
different
is a
like
games.
hard argument, but I still got to go
Look,
with the
For me,
Brady.
it's this. I look at it like this. I watch the quarterbacks play by play. I don't let team results affect me. I don't let any of this stuff of like the score and the clutch and that stuff counts some. But I'm just watching the quarterback go out there and move the ball. Nobody moved the ball like Peyton Manning did down the field, and even the things he did to create running opportunities for the running backs. Tom Brady wasn't doing that until Peyton Manning did that stuff and it became normal. And now you could say, oh, well, that means Peyton Manning's the most innovative. It doesn't mean he's the best. But I'm not talking about just that. The innovation was only one aspect of it. And I know he didn't have the greatest arm, but before the last couple years of his career where it got really bad, or really mainly the last year, he threw the ball fine. He could get it down the field. He could get it wherever he wanted to. It's playing quarterback, whoever the best quarterback has nothing to do with having the best arm. You know what I mean? That part of it. But
He throws a good
did
football.
whatever he wanted. He stepped on the football field. He did whatever he wanted. I mean, he's the guy that, he's got the 55. He's got the touchdown record. if you go on a year-by-year status, he had the all-time touchdown record. The only reason Brady broke his records is because he played longer. Now, if you want to say Brady's better because of that, I disagree. To me, it's not about how long a guy plays. I look at a certain stretch of time and say.
Well, then you go Breeze. Then you look at Breeze and know that he's done it in less time. He's right up there or more than Brady.
Yeah, and Breeze broke Manning's record because of more time too.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like also with Brady, Brady's played longer than Breeze has, and Breeze has more records than he does as far as yards and touchdowns.
I think it's fair to say that we have been like kind of blessed to watch probably the 3 of the best quarterbacks that have played the game. I'm not saying the top 3 in any specific order, but Brady, Breeze, and Manning, we've watched them pretty much as we've grown up, and we've got an opportunity to see three of the best do it. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can argue ranking all you want. Everyone's going to have their reasoning for who they like.
I will say this, just to kind of throw in a little bit of Pittsburgh talk, that after seeing Breeze this season and seeing the heavy drop-off and very vividly remembering Peyton Manning's horrific drop-off, I do actually think Ben still has some arm in him and some game left in him for another year because he didn't look as that bad as those guys did.
I would tell people, if you think Ben's done, go look at Breeze, and there was a significant level. But I will also say this about Breeze's play this year. Breeze looked bad this year, but he did not look as bad as Peyton Manning's last year. Manning's last year, that dude didn't throw one single spiral. He couldn't throw the ball anywhere. It's a miracle they went on a playoff run because he basically
because they put Osweiler in there.
Right? But then they benched him, and they put Osweiler in. And when Osweiler was like just pretty much decent, they were like, well, he's better than Peyton the way Peyton's throwing the ball this year.
Yeah.
And then Osweiler catches a little injury in the last game. They would give Peyton a shot. He actually comes in and looks okay, and they're like, all right, we'll roll with it. It's a miracle that they were able to win a Super Bowl with the way, and I love Peyton. Like I said, I think he's the greatest of all time. But that last year, it was terrible when he would throw the ball.
Well,
and Breeze didn't look that bad this year, is what I'm saying.
If he comes back next year, he might be there.
Yeah, as
we
close, as we wrap up the show, it's interesting to think, what could have been had Jameis Winston gotten the start against the Bucs. Perhaps it could have been a different outcome. We'll never know. But
worse loss.
I will say this: if I'm the Saints, he wanted to eat some dubs, man. He threw that pick and he wanted to eat that dub. If I'm the Saints, though,
in that game, if he gets traded mid-game,
I'll leave it with this: if I'm the Saints, there is literally no reason. You are the number 1 team that should be going after Deshaun Watson right now because you can literally take all the talent you have. And you can add Deshaun Watson to it.
Oh, God, don't start.
And you will be an immediate NFC contender.
Shouldn't every team?
Yes, but look at but the Saints have so much talent. They don't need their picks. They don't need their picks for the next 3 years. They need to just take the window. I get that. But I'm saying.
All right, we'll give you every pick for the next 12 years.
I wouldn't go that.
No, I'm saying for the next 3 years. If they give up their ones for the next 3 years. If they give up their
James Harden, 3 first rounders. That's just.
This isn't James Harden going to the Nets where they give up 5 unprotected picks.
All right, so you're saying the Saints, it's just that easy. Like, give them your 3 first rounders and they'll give you Deshaun, and it's just they'll get him, right? You think it's that easy?
No, I'm not saying they'll get him. I'm saying they should be doing
another
stuff
team will be like,
that.
we'll give you your 3 first rounders plus a second, and then it'll just keep going.
Yeah, of course.
Where does it stop?
He's probably gonna end up on the Jets. Poor guy.
He's probably gonna end up on the Texans.
Yeah, he better be careful.
I don't think he is. I honestly don't.
He better be careful what he wishes for because the Texans really weren't that bad until this year. It could get a lot worse. Look at the Jets.
I think it's the turmoil with him.
He has the ability to determine where he gets traded.
Yeah, he's going to trade.
He could go a short drive north to Dallas if he wants to.
Houston still controls it, and if they know anything good, they will control it, and they will not let him get away.
Hey, before we go, and we're talking about the Texans, Penn State had a coach from Alabama, and they let him go. And Bill O'Brien, he's the new OC down in Alabama now. What do y'all think about that?
Good for him. I don't think it matters who's the OC in Alabama. I think all that matters is that as long as Nick Saban is there, they're going to be in the national championship game. That has nothing to do with the offensive coordinator.
You know why coaches go there though. Eventually Bill O'Brien's going to go back and get another head coaching job in college football.
Probably.
That's what they do.
All right.
Hey, look, here's a quick stat on Alabama though. 6 out of the last 12 years, they have won the championship with a coordinator or a coach who has already accepted another head coaching position.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Great stat, Aggie.
Yeah. Stats guy Adam.
That's from Greeny.
we need to get you a Twitter handle.
We're not going to quote Greeny. Greeny thinks that Lamar Jackson is basically Josh Allen minus a receiver. So we're not going to talk about him.
He can think that all he wants. He's wrong.
All right, we're wrapping it up. Join us on Sunday if you're still here. I don't think anybody's still here, but anybody that is possibly still listening. If Greg Ferry, if you're there, Gary John, if you're there. I know Puddin's not on tonight. because YouTube has been quiet. But
Gary can't stream anymore because Comcast is limiting his internet. So
throttling is a real issue with the internet. But join us on Sunday at 2:00
Yeah.
for our championship weekend game, and then we will have a special show hopefully on Super Bowl Sunday as well in 3 weeks. But yeah, so join us for that. Thanks for stopping by.
see you guys.